Hello and welcome to another Bobby Fischer video. Can Bobby Fischer be analyzed by a chess computer program or app? What do you think? What's your opinion on this? I'm kind of curious, if computers can, basically look at almost every move with brute force. They just calculate every possible move. Well, not every possible move. They can only go so deep, otherwise they would have solved chess. So I'm kind of curious what you think about this. I had a viewer with an interesting take saying that analyzing Bobby Fischer games with a computer was a joke. I highly respect all opinions from viewers and subscribers, and I'm curious to know what all of you think. Computers can definitely find tactics that are missed, and they can calculate, far better than humans. But they might have trouble with strategy, especially long-term strategy. A computer can't think, well, they castled on this side, I'm going to castle on the opposite side and throw a pawn storm at them and, aim all my pieces in that direction. They can't quite calculate like that. But who knows with AI in the future what chess computers will be able to do. And also, Bobby Fischer, his highest rating, I think, was around 2780 maybe. And computers now, some of these programs are, reaching equivalents of like 3700, so almost 1,000 points higher. And they might be higher than that. That was in the Gotham Chess book. He mentioned that average computers now are reaching, well, maybe not average ones, but chess computers are capable of reaching a 3,700 rating. So let's get to this game and see, what we can analyze here with the computer. So Bobby Fischer has the white pieces. He plays e4, and this game took place in 1965. Bobby Fischer was 22, and this was at the 1965 U.S. Championship, in which Bobby Fischer won with 8.5 out of 11 points. He had 2 losses, 1 draw, and won 8 games. So awesome job by Bobby Fischer. And he is facing the French defense here. So, he takes control of the center with his pawns. The French defense normal move is made here with d5, counterattacking the e-pawn. So now we have the Terrace variation, where you defend the pawn with the knight, but instead of going to c3 and blocking the c-pawn, you move to d2 to defend the pawn. And that allows you to push the c-pawn to c3 to fortify the d-pawn, in case the typical French counterattack here of c5 striking that pawn, you'll be able to fortify it with your own c-pawn. So the knight is played here, attacking this pawn, which the queen was protecting, and now it's blocked. So what does Fischer do? Well, he plays c3. It defends the pawn, keeps the knight and the bishop out of this b4 square. And so now we have an interesting move. This is the French defense Terrace variation, but the Guimard defense, if I pronounce that correctly. So a lot of conflict between the central pawns. So what will Bobby Fischer do here? And at this point, the computer says that, white has a slight edge, because they're moving first. Here we have the capture of the pawn. Queen recaptures. And now Fischer just develops a knight, which, could entice this pawn forward to attack. But the computer does not recommend that. Instead, e takes d4 is the top recommended computer move. And sure enough, Fischer's opponent, Robert Byrne, who came in second tied with Reshevsky in this tournament, with both of them having 7.5 points out of 11 to Bobby Fischer's 8.5. So Byrne attacks the center. Fischer counterattacks the queen here, instead of trying to regain his pawn at the moment. So the queen sidesteps here, and all of these are book moves. The queen moves to the side, lining up on the king side, but also defending that f pawn, which is kind of being eyed by the c4 bishop. So the game continues with Fischer castling to the king side. Knight develops, and Robert Byrne needs to get his king to safety. Here, a mistake being made by Fischer, according to the computer. So this is where we kind of get into whether or not a computer can analyze Bobby Fischer. And if I get good feedback on this video, feel free to leave any comments that you have. I'll follow this up maybe with some future videos talking about computer analysis. Now, what I'd like to do is go over in the future some games that are later in Bobby's career. So Bobby Fischer was only, 22 here. So this is 1965. And he became world champion in 72. So I'd like to see what the computer does with Bobby Fischer games from 70 to 72, where he was in his prime, playing the best in his life. So here we go with this game. The queen was attacking. Now, the computer recommends instead saying this queen move is a mistake, but Fischer still has an even game here. If he would have played rook to e1, which the computer recommends instead, that would jump the game to 0.6 in Bobby's favor. Why? Well, we'll find out later, or here shortly, why bringing the queen over ends up being a mistake. Here, the rook would have attacked the king with check. Bishop to e7 could have been played to block, and then it recommends Fischer just capturing this pawn on d4. But in the game, we have this move, and let's see if our opponent can try and take advantage of it. The best move is played, this having to be played, or this should be played to block the check, get ready to castle. So now the recommendation by the computer is knight takes d4, which sure enough Fischer finds the best move, and now we have castling, the best move for black, and it looks interesting here. You're thinking, well, can I take this and then remove the defender of that bishop? So let's see what would happen if Bobby Fischer did that. If he takes this, now it says that was not a great move. That now, well, it says it's a good move, but not the best move. Here, bishop to d6 can be played, which would allow, it threatens a mate and gives the opponent time to capture that knight. So, of course, Bobby Fischer doesn't do that. He instead, if we go back a little bit here, so after the castling move, we have this, the best move being found by Fischer, targeting the queen. And at this point, black has a slight edge maybe after this bishop to g4 move, although the computer is saying it's about even here. There's a block for this attack on the queen by Robert Byrne. And then Fischer plays this move, and the computer says that this is a blunder here. So, as far as can Fischer be analyzed with the computer, well, the computer, might not be perfect strategically, but it will find tactical blunders like this one. and we'll see why this is a blunder here. But the computer is an aid to help you find what moves may be good, what things could be missed, what is bad. It's just a tool to aid you. And I had another viewer talk about this, and he mentioned that Fischer played at such a high level that the average person is going to have trouble understanding all of Fischer's moves, and the computer could really help figure that out. Now the viewer who said it was a joke to analyze Bobby Fischer's games with a computer, I don't know what level of chess they played at. I'm sure it's a valid point either way. A computer can't see everything, especially strategy. Bobby Fischer could have some long-term strategy in his games that the computer would have trouble figuring out. But then again, if you have a powerful enough computer, they can look at every variation, not every, but many variations, and find things that a normal person would have trouble discovering. So Robert Byrne, he threatens a mate in 1 here. And this is a great move. So if we go back after this blunder by Fischer, this is the best move. Now, what should Fischer have played instead of capturing the knight up here? Well, it looks like the best move would be to go ahead, capture here, attacking the queen. The knight would recapture, threatening a mate here. And then we would have h3 attacking, threatening to capture the knight. And then knight should centralize here and defend this knight. That way, if it's captured, it will prevent the doubling of pawns and at the same time protect the bishop here. So then the recommendation is to go ahead and capture, and then after knight to f3, the game would be even here. So, let's see what Fischer actually did that was wrong. He blunders by capturing with the knight here, and then we have this move being played, which is best, which gets the bishop out of the line of fire of that knight and threatens a mate in 1 here on h2 at the same time. And then we have an attack on the bishop. So the best move is played by Robert Byrne, capturing here. And this is why earlier it may have been better to move that rook to the e file instead of the queen, because now we have a rook that's trapped here. And so the game continues with knight to d4, the best move being played by Fischer, getting out of the line of this attack on the knight by that pawn, and at the same time targeting the bishop. But the bishop will, of course, capture and go up the exchange here, a bishop for the rook, and then queen captures is best, but now Robert Byrne has a +2 advantage, the equivalent of 2 pawns after this exchange of bishop for rook. So the game continues with rook grabbing the open file. The knight jumps forward here, blocking the path of the queen, getting the knight into a better position, unblocking the bishop so that can be developed, also guarding the back rank here with that knight, and fortifying his own knight. So now we have a6 being played, which is not the best move. Apparently the best move would have been bringing this knight forward, but this would prevent maybe the knight from jumping up here and targeting the bishop. So the game continues with Bobby Fischer developing his bishop, attacking the knight, threatening to capture and wreck the pawns on the king side. So now we have queen stepping back to guard that knight, and then rook grabbing the open file here, and the game continues with rook stepping forward, centralizing here, preparing to double rooks on the open e file. So the computer actually recommends instead bringing this rook immediately over here and maybe fighting for the d file. So the game continues with bishop dropping back, blocking the e file, fortifying the knight at the same time. So knight attacks bishop, and we have the bishop dropping back, the best move, keeping that bishop, avoiding trades, which you want to do if you're behind in material. You want to try and trade pawns, but avoid piece trades. So rooks take the open e file, doubled up here. The knight drops back to attack the rook, and the rook steps back to the best square recommended by the computer here. So Fischer jumps forward here, targeting the bishop, and that bishop steps up, attacking Fischer's bishop, perhaps threatening to trade down material here. So Fischer ignores that for the moment, dropping his knight back, which guards this e1 square, to prevent a pin of the queen if this rook has to move in the future. So Fischer, Byrne, his opponent, fortifies the knight, which is under attack by this rook here. So the game continues with knight stepping forward here. And, what happens here? If the knight captures, well, then Fischer can capture here. Or if Fischer captures that knight, then this bishop will be unprotected. So we have an exchange of bishops, then, an exchange of minor pieces. Bishop for knight, and then now the knight and bishop are traded off. So this exchange, let's take a look at this. It's helped Robert Byrne. He's ahead by 4 points, the equivalent of 4 pawns, according to the computer evaluation, because of that exchange. He has doubled rooks on the e file. Now he is left with this weak isolated pawn. So the game continues with rook grabbing the 7th rank. And Fischer protects that pawn, but now the queen gets in on the action here. And so the game continues with an attack on the queen. Computer says this is an excellent move, but queen to c1. It actually likes queen to c1 better, which would have, still given up a pawn with queen to c1. If the queen went here attacking the queen, either queens could be exchanged and the b pawn would be captured, or maybe a possible exchange and capture, possible capture here, then an exchange of queens. So the game continues with an attack on the queen. Queen captures pawn. Fischer attacks the queen, and the queen grabs another pawn. And now black has this dangerous passed pawn in the center. So Fischer captures, putting his rook on the 7th rank. We have another pawn being picked off, and it's looking pretty grim here for Fischer now. So +4 as far as material by Robert Byrne. He's up the exchange, a knight for a rook, and 2 pawns here. So Fischer jumps his king up the board to h2, getting off the back rank. And now we have pawn being pushed, giving some breathing room for black's king. And then queen doubling up with the rook here. Fischer's in trouble. It's almost 4.88 here to black's advantage. So another pawn is picked off, and the game continues with Fischer centralizing his queen, threatening to capture here and go for a, well, he can't follow up with a mate because the queen is guarding here. So let's see what happens. Knight is captured here. Now, pawn cannot capture because it's pinned. So Fischer exchanges, rook captures, capture, and now material-wise, Robert Byrne is up 3 pawns. Fischer, after Robert Byrne gets behind the passed pawn, which is a very useful move, the game ends here after rook attacking the pawn and d4, a runaway passed pawn. Now this is where the game ended. I'm going to do a quick hit this review button to see what the accuracy rating was for each player, and then I'll go right back here and show you how the game could have ended. But this is another useful thing for the that computers can help you with. You can get a quick analysis here of let's see here. All right, hold on. I want to see what, it's not giving me the accuracy rating. Oh, here we go. Highlights. This is what I'm looking for. Okay. Bobby Fischer played at 90.5% accuracy. Anything in the 90s is usually pretty good. But his opponent, 96.5. So outstanding game by Robert Byrne. Which Robert Byrne, I don't know what his highest rating was. Probably at least in the 2400 level. So he was at least a chess master. I don't know if he made the grandmaster level or not. But Fischer, this being earlier in his career, and that's why I want to make a future video where we take a look at analyzing Fischer's games when he was playing his best. So in the 1970 to 72 period, when he became world champion. So here it says Fischer played at a 2650 rating level and Robert Byrne played at 2700. 100% accuracy in the opening by both players, but the middle game accuracy was 83.1 for Fischer versus 97 by his opponent. So, maybe Fischer just had a bad day. His opponent had one great move, no inaccuracies by either player, one mistake and one blunder by Fischer. So, if we go back here and see how this game could have continued, it looks like the computer recommends either rook to b2, putting the rook here for white, for Fischer, where he can block this pawn, but then this one will be on the run. The other recommendation, would be to go ahead and capture this, which looks like a more likely scenario. And then d3, maybe this pawn starts running, forcing the rook to go here and get in front of that pawn. And then after d2, rook blocks. And now the kings will have to get into the game here, get involved. Computer recommends either king to f8 or h7. So the king could either come this way and try and go down and get into the game, or maybe this way and out. So if we have king to f8, now you would think you would want to get that king moving. king to e7. What is recommended now? King up to f4. That could keep. The problem is here, there's a 3-2 pawn majority, and it's going to take giving up the rook to take this pawn out, and then it'll go into a pawn endgame with 3 versus 2 pawns. So after this move, we have king to e3, but the king will be able to step down in here, and so that's, you know, looking pretty dangerous. So, you know, instead of having that king run, the computer says h4 would be a better move. Then what? Rook to d7 or rook to d4 check. So if you have something like that, rook to d4, king to e3 attacks, the rook can just step back up, maybe to d5. And the problem is, if you exchange off here, capture the pawn and exchange off the rooks, you're just going to have an extra pawn in the endgame, and that should be winning. And that's why the computer says it's you know, about almost 9 points in favor of black here, because in the end game, one of these pawns will be able to break through. You know, I'm not going to go that deep into it. You can kind of play that out over the board or look at it further on your own if you would like. Anyway, let me know. I'm always interested in comments by viewers and subscribers. What do you think? Can Bobby Fischer be analyzed by a computer? I'd like to do those future videos where we analyze some of his games at his prime in 1970 leading up to his 1972 World Championship win. Those should be interesting games for the computer to analyze for sure. All right. Leave any comments, like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.